So I have removed all the code and make some methods for our whole nodes application. The first method, the previous method, is get all nodes, where we will retrieve some nodes. The next method is get node by ID. So in this method we are using path variable. Path variable is just you are taking input in URL. So that's how. Just use annotation path variable and map this ID to the path. And for post mapping I am using request body annotation, and in request body you can take input as JSON. So you will make a request with JSON body. And input mapping I am also using again the path variable ID, the ID of the node, and the node with updated values. We are using request body here. And for delete mapping I am again using a path variable which will retrieve the node with the given ID, and it will delete the node. So now I am going to inject a service dependency here. By using annotation auto void, we usually inject our dependency. I will cover this topic in separate video, the detailed version of dependency injection. For now, let's just add it here. Auto private node service. Let's name it service, and I am going to create class node service. So our service class has been created. Let's just use annotation at the rate service. It, let's assume for a while this service annotation is just like a simple bean annotation or a component annotation. I will also cover this topic in separate video, the difference between service, bean and component. So let's use it for a while. And now I'm going to create all the methods, fill in all the methods of controller class, and by just writing service. So our first method is get all nodes. So these are all the methods for service class I have just made. The first method is get all nodes. This method will return all the nodes existing in our database. And next we have get mapping. It is actually get request by ID. So here you can see the name of this controller function is get node by ID. So here we are passing ID, and in create node we are passing the whole node model. And in put mapping we are passing ID, and ID, if value exists then we will update the node with this node we are just taking in. And in last we have delete mapping, in which we are again using ID as path variable and passing it to my service function. So these are all the methods. There is little mistake here, as ID is in integer, so I have to take input as an integer. Let's change it here as well. Okay, let's quickly create all the methods in our service class, and we will implement all those methods. Just click the node methods. So here our first method get all nodes. The return type is list nodes. The next method is get node by ID. Here the return type is single node. So with one ID we will get a single node. And next we have create node. So the return type of this method is string, because we have to give user some response. We have to give some response. If it's created successful, we will return 200 OK, otherwise it will return some error or some other code. Next we have update node, and again we are using string as return type, and in this method we also get response. And in last we have delete node. So again in delete nodes we are using string because we have to get some response. So these are all the methods. Now the next thing is, before implementing all these methods, I have to inject repository here so that we can communicate with our database. So I am just again injecting a dependency autowide private, so nodes repository, and make sure this is the interface, because we have to extend JPA repository, so we will use interface, not class here. So let's give package repository and create. Okay, so our interface with node, our interface is just we have just created our interface. So let's extend, use extends JPA repository. So JPA repository takes two things. First, the model class. The repository is mapped to some model class. In our case, the model class is node. So I am giving node here. And next thing is, let me just import node class, start model. And next thing is the data type of unique identifier. Like in our case, in node class we have ID, integer ID. So we will use integer, and it's simple. And we have just created our first repository. And in repository there are some built-in methods, but we can also add some queries. We will add some query later. For now, let's use all the repository methods. So first we have to return list of nodes. So let return. So we have just created repository. So repository dot. So here you can see the first method is find all. It is by default, and it is just returning, as you can see here, it is returning list of nodes. So next method we have get node by ID. So let's just return repository dot find by ID. So as here you can see, the return type is optional node. So what is optional? So let's cover this. Let's first remove this, and let me create an optional variable, optional, and and the typecast is node. So this is node is equal to, let's now use repository dot find by ID. So what optional is, let's go through some documentation. So this is the official documentation of optional. Let me just zoom it for you. So here you can see a container object which may or may not contain a non-null value. So anything from nodes, if we have to find some node, the value may or may not exist. So if we give some wrong ID which not exist in our database, then we will get some we will have to give some response. So for that we use optional. So optional, so let's, if a value is present, the is present method will return true, and uh, if there will be some value, then obviously it will return some value. So let's just use it optional and write some conditions like node dot is present. So if node is not present, then just return null. Else sorry, okay, else return node dot get. So now our method has been completed. So it will check from database that if it exists in database, it will give some value, otherwise it will give null value. The next method is create node. So we have to just create node by simply using method repository dot save, and as we are using the same entity class, so we don't need to write any setter, fill in any setters. In update node method, we just have to use this get node by id. So let's just add condition. So let's create node is equal to get node by id. So existing node, if existing node is not equal to null, just use repository dot save the node with updated values, and we have to return response return string node has been updated successfully. Okay, we have to write an else condition to return node node with id does not exist. So sorry, let's just copy this and save it here. Return this here. Node has been created successfully. In last we have delete node method. So in delete node method, we will again using get node by id. So the same condition, let's just copy from here and just uh, just use repository dot delete existing node. Simple as it is. So else the same condition, node with id doesn't exist. So all of our service method has been created. So now we have to make this node class our entity class, and after that we will run this application. So there is some error, let me fix this error. So it is uh, so here we have missed return statement. So return node has been deleted successfully. So now all of our errors has been removed, and now we just have to make this node class and entity class, and after that we will create some database and run our application. Okay guys, I did little mistake, actually missed something in our update method and create method. We need to add date before creating, or we need to fill date created when we are going to create a node, and we also need to update the date, fill the field date created, date updated whenever the node will be updated. So this is our create node service method. So in this we just have to call setter set date created and new date. uh, just select date util and toString. So we just need to add this setter. We need to call this setter in this create node method. And in next we miss we miss something in update node, and which is the date updated. So we need to set date updated and new date to string, and we need to set title for the update title method. We need to fetch this from this node get title like this, and for description we will do the same node get description. And here the repository save method will be the existing node. We will use existing node. If it is found in database, then we are going to edit this. We are going to edit this object and we'll save this object with updated values. So this will be this node. So now our update method and create method has been created. Now I am going to create entity classes.